The Labour leader took aim at the hugely profitable banking sector and singled out Morgan Stanley chief executive James Gorman. He said, "Nurses, teachers, shop workers, builders, just about everyone is finding it harder to get by." While Morgan Stanley's CEO paid himself £21.5 million last year and UK banks paid out £15 billion in bonuses, Labour is a growing movement of well over 500,000 members and a government in waiting that will work for the many. When they say we are a threat, they're right. We are a threat to a damaging and failed system that's rigged for the few. Bankers like Morgan Stanley should not run our country, but they think they do. Getty. Jeremy Corbyn took aim at the banking sector despite it being so profitable for the UK economy. It comes as the US bank warned Britain, under the leadership of the left-winger, could trigger the nationalisation of key industries, higher taxes and a shift in spending priorities towards lower-income households, damaging the valuation of UK companies. A shock report by Morgan Stanley's European equity team said, the UK is in the midst of a double whammy of uncertainty in the shape of Brexit and a fragile domestic political situation. Taken together, these two factors, which are interrelated to some degree, cast a long shadow over the policy backdrop and economic outlook of the UK. For the UK market, domestic politics may be perceived as a bigger risk than Brexit. From a UK investor perspective, we believe that the domestic political situation is at least as significant as Brexit, given the fragile state of the current government and the perceived risks of an incoming Labour administration that could potentially embark on a radical change in policy direction. Monday, June 26, 2017, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn in the Greenpeace area at Glastonbury Festival. Against this backdrop, even if we see good progress in the Brexit negotiations, the scope for UK-sensitive assets to rally may be muted, unless we also see an improvement in the government's position in opinion polls. The bank said utility companies were most at risk, especially water and power sectors. But, the bank said, postal services, telecommunications, and travel firms could also be affected. Many campaigners are against the city, but it is the country's powerhouse and rakes in huge sums for the Treasury. Financial services paid a record £72.1 billion in taxes during the year to March 31, which is 11% of the total collected by the Exchequer. Friday, June 9, 2017, Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn offered transfer advice to Arsenal in 2000 when asked about Corbyn's comments. Former Northern powerhouse Minister Andrew Percy said, "This is really worrying given how much tax financial services provide to the UK, tax that is used to pay for our doctors, nurses and teachers. We already know Labour would raise taxes for the many, now we know they also plan to threaten the jobs of ordinary workers in the city." Mr. Corbyn also blamed the banks for the financial crisis in 2008, despite critics blaming the previous Labour government's overspending for leaving the nation's bank account bare when the crisis hit. But, it should be noted that public sector net debt as a proportion of GDP was down under Labour for most of its term, but jumped from 36% of GDP in 2007-08 to 65% in 2000-910. Mr. Corbyn said, "These are the same speculators and gamblers who crashed our economy in 2008. And then we had to bail them out." Getty. The bank said utility companies were most at risk. Their greed plunged the world into crisis and we're still paying the price, because the Tories used the aftermath of the financial crisis to push through unnecessary and deeply damaging austerity. Mr. Corbyn pledged a Robin Hood tax on the city if elected, which is an effective rate of £26 billion. The Labour leader also attacked Morgan Stanley for having close ties to the Conservatives, even though former Labour Chancellor Alistair Darling has been a board member since 2015. Getty. Jeremy Corbyn attacked Morgan Stanley for having close ties to the Conservatives. The Labour Party has vowed it would put an end to the rigged economy that benefits only the super-rich, a spokesman said. The next Labour government will provide the major boost to investment that business groups like the CBI and the FSB have been calling for, protect 95% of people from any tax rises and ensure our public services work for people, not profiteers. The banks and hedge funds will not be allowed to bring our economy to its knees again. Labour will put an end to the rigged economy that benefits only the super-rich, to build a society that works for the many, not the few.